There was baseball on my TV today, and yesterday, and tomorrow. This is how excited I am. Am I doing it? Am I doing the Olivia face? What's up, everybody? I'm Tara Wellman. This is Birdseeds, and spring training games are back. Baseball is back, and we're already down for the count. We've already lost one Johnny Peralta to injury. I thought this injury thing was going to be so last year. Wasn't that like the 2015 motto, next man up? Do we really have to continue that? We can't be a little more original in the 2016 plan? Nonetheless, Johnny Peralta out with the same kind of thumb injury that sidelined Yadier Molina and required not one, but two off-season surgeries. So, what do we do without Johnny Peralta to start the season? I think the guy on the fastest track to take over for Johnny Peralta until, mid-June or so, whenever he can return, is the guy that John Mozeliak went out and picked up this offseason to be the backup in the middle infield. Now, Jed Jerko was signed to be the backup to Kolten Wong and Johnny Peralta. He can play those infield positions, but he's not the best defensive shortstop. Aledmys Diaz is a guy who came on pretty strong offensively in the second half of last year through the fall league, but he doesn't have that major league experience. And then there's Greg Garcia, who is a guy that I think a lot of people would have penciled in as an option for a bench guy to be a backup to those middle infielders. I don't know if there's a lot of confidence in his ability every single day. But keep in mind, we once started a season with my guy, Pete Kozma, as the everyday shortstop. Now, you all know I love me some Pete Kozma, but, he's gone. The true shortstop of the bunch is probably Diaz, but does he have what it takes at the major league level? Can he break camp as the everyday starting shortstop? These are the things that spring training gives us to think about. Speaking of Jed Jerko being signed as the backup to Kolten Wong signed a contract of his own, a nice 5-year extension with the option for an additional year, and in my opinion, this is a steal of a deal for the Cardinals. It averages out to about $5 million a year. It's a progressive contract. He makes a lot more at the end of the contract than he does right now. But considering the fact that there was an argument for Kolten Wong to be an all-star last year, I know, he has his slumps. People keep telling me he hasn't proven anything. I think he's proven that he's getting better and that he has the potential to be an all-star caliber second baseman. To get him for, on average, $5 million a year, nicely done, St. Louis. I also like the fact that Kolten made a point to say he wanted to be a Cardinal. He told his agent, let's get this done, I want to be a Cardinal. I personally would love to see Kolten be a Cardinal for the duration of his major league career, but I'm a little biased because, I was actually on the field the day that Kolten Wong started his professional career in baseball. I'm really excited for him. I think this is a good thing for him mentally as well. I talked about this a little bit on my podcast with Daniel Shoptaw, Gateway to Baseball Heaven, shameless self-promotion, that we do every Sunday night. And we talked about the fact that sometimes we feel like Kolten puts a little bit of pressure on himself, and we weren't really sure how he was going to handle having Jed Jerko there as the guy that could potentially take his spot if he struggled. Well, signing this contract may have been the mental boost, the confidence that he needed to know that the Cardinals think he's their guy. That was before the Johnny Peralta incident, so now he's kind of the guy anyway, but nonetheless, hopefully a confidence booster as well as just a nice thing to have out of the way and done with for the Cardinals front office as they move forward. Now, what exactly Kolten's role will be offensively with the St. Louis Cardinals is to be determined, although he's made no secret of the fact that he would love to develop into the kind of guy that could hit leadoff for the St. Louis Cardinals, and then conversely would let a guy like Matt Carpenter with more middle-of-the-order type offensive numbers slide down the lineup a little bit. We all know that Kolten has maybe some holes in his game before he can really fit into that prototypical leadoff guy role. However, if he wants to become that guy, I think it would serve him well to listen to another podcast, the best podcast in baseball, Short, that Derek Gould from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch did with Matt Carpenter, because in that segment, it was a really interesting conversation and discussion that Matt Carpenter explained what his opinion is of the leadoff role, and not only why it's significant, but what you have to do to become that guy. Remember, he wasn't necessarily a prototypical leadoff guy when he was put into that role several years ago either, and now he's one of baseball's best. But he talked about it being almost more about the mental side of what you're doing and being able to get a good read on the opposing pitcher, and how much that, as much as getting on base a lot, is what helps your team succeed in any given game. So Colton, if you want to become a leadoff guy, pick the brain of Matt Carpenter and start by listening to his thoughts on that podcast. One other thing that Matt Carpenter said in that interview that got me thinking was in reference to this question, this idea that, well, you led the team in home runs last year. How do you not see that might fit better in the middle of the order? Matt Carpenter's response was very interesting to me. He said, if everyone's healthy, I'm not going to lead the team in home runs. Fair point. Because if Matt Holliday, Matt Adams, Brandon Moss, well, I would have said Johnny Peralta, but that's out the window. You could throw Matt Carpenter, maybe even resurgent Yadier Molina in that mix. These are all guys that have a little bit of power, that have proven that in the past. Okay, maybe take Yadi off that list. Nonetheless, they've proven they can hit the ball out of the park, so maybe if these guys that are the more typical home run hitters are healthy this year, Matt Carpenter won't lead the team in home runs. But that also got me thinking, how many of these guys are capable of, could potentially have 20 home run seasons? What do you think? How many players can the Cardinals have in 2016 capable of 20 home run seasons? Let me know. One of the interesting things about spring training every year is when we start to get an idea of what the club is thinking, what the management, the coaching staff, the front office is thinking about what will define this team, what they want to improve on from last year. We hear a lot of talk about fundamentals. We hear a lot of talk about saving innings for the pitchers. And the last several spring trainings, we've heard a lot from particularly Mike Matheny about wanting to see his guys be more aggressive on the base paths. Naturally, you would think that would lead to more stolen bases or extra bases in the season. We haven't really seen that play out necessarily in the regular season as much as you would think, considering how much they're talking about it. And it's happening again this year. There's so much talk about wanting to see more aggressive base running. And that made a lot of sense when you had the speed of Peter Bourjos and Jason Hayward along with Colton Wong. This year, you could see it again with Colton, Tommy Pham, maybe Stephen Piscotty, and of course the greased lightning type speed of one Yadier Molina. But I digress. It's kind of starting to feel a little bit like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. We hear all about it in spring training, don't necessarily see it in the season. In fact, this reminds me of a story. Oh, hello, and welcome to Storytime with Tara, the part of the show where I, Tara, tell you a story. Let's begin. Once upon a time, in a high school gymnasium far, far away, was a basketball team. This team was beginning a new season as defending conference champions. They say defense wins championships, and this team was living proof of just that. Defense was their calling card, but their coach believed they needed a new trick up their sleeves if they were going to repeat their title. So, every day, every single day of that season, they practiced a full-on, full-court press. Not just full-court pressure, mind you, but the kind of press that changes games and wins championships. They practiced traps on dozens of different places on the court. They worked on making quick adjustments so they didn't get beat, and by tournament time, it was flawless. And yet, no one ever saw the fruits of their labor, because despite all the talk and all the practice, they never ran that fearsome full-court press. Not one time. But I'm bitter about my high school basketball career. Thanks for that. The moral of that story is this. You can say whatever you want, you can practice however you want, but if that aggressive base running never shows up in a regular season game, what good is it really doing to talk about it? Just food for thought. This is typically the part of the show where I like to try to answer your Twitter questions. But really, this week there's just this one. But guys, come on now. Do you know me at all? I'm never gonna answer that question. But it did get me thinking, which of the current Cardinals would I most like to co-host this show? There are several options. Last year we got a taste of Adam Wainwright and Matt Holliday in the broadcast booth, and Matt Holliday was surprisingly engaging for a guy that kind of acts like he doesn't really like the media all that much. But if I had to pick one, who might it be? You know, I think Matt Carpenter would be fascinating. I would love to pick his brain about how he's been one of the most successful hitters in the big leagues in the last couple of years. I think that Adam Wainwright would be wildly entertaining, and I think that at the end of the day, he would probably be my pick. Adam, call me, we'll work something out. You and me, Birdseeds, 2016. Let's do this. Think on that for a few days. We've got another week of spring training games coming up. Hopefully this next week we'll only have news of the positive variety coming up. But that is all for this time. I will see you next time on Birdseeds.